Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Be Real, Get Real with Women's Prosperity Network. And I am so happy that you are with me today. So we're only going to be about 15 minutes. We're going to have a great conversation. Wait till you hear the story of this woman. So Be Real, Get Real is all about meeting the people behind the business. You know, we all network together, we get together all the time, but it's so interesting that oftentimes we don't know the background of people. We don't know what they've been through. And it's so interesting because we find that the more we know about each other, the more we relate to each other, the more we like each other, the more we trust each other. And isn't that what we're wanting to do in business? So this is all about getting to know the person behind the business, right? Because we do business with people, not with businesses. When I go to my grocery store, which is a huge chain of grocery stores, it's Danny I'm talking to who's bagging my groceries, and it's Anita who's my cashier. It's the real people. So this is about the real people. And this woman, oh my goodness, let me tell you about MJ Charles. Mary Jane. Some of us call her MJ. She also goes by Mary Jane. Either way is right. She is the Last Wish Facilitator. Now, I know that sounds really weird, but it's the Last Wishes. She's the author of the award-winning book, Surviving the Business of Dying, Why Final Papers Matter, and the accompanying companion workbook. And her efforts reflect her sole purpose of giving visibility to the still mumbled topic of final papers. You know, like when you're not here, how are the people who love you going to know what you wanted us to do, where we should take care of your ashes or your remains or whatever? Where's all your stuff so we can pay the bills? Where's the life insurance? Where's the investments? Where's the code to get into the electric company to pay the bills? All those things. So Mary Jane Charles has been doing this for several years now, and she's made real inroads with people, but her story is compelling. So let me say hello to Mary Jane Charles. Welcome.
Thank you. This is great to be here. I've been here before. It's always a delight. And there are still things to tell, and especially if you haven't heard it before. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you are, Mary Jane, because, you know, it's not something we like to talk about, but it's something we really are compelled to talk about, because otherwise we leave the people in our life totally blindsided to be able to get the information that we need while we're mourning that person. So share a little bit about, why do you do this? How did you come to become the Last Wishes Facilitator?
It evolved. My husband died suddenly. He had been sick with what I don't know. He went to Dr. Google. And so who knows? There were never any tests. He just kept reading. Well, anyway, he died in the car seat next to me. But that morning, for some reason, I mean, he'd been sick. So I kept saying, we need a will.
A will. We need a will.
Yeah, the wills. I wouldn't even go down there. It was like I was a gold digger. This was a late in life marriage. I was trying to do well by somebody who we weren't doing well. But in any case, he was sick. And he said, you need to have final papers. And what do you want from, rah, rah, rah. I said, so this is the medical directive for the state of Washington. It'll take 5 minutes. I'm not signing anything. That morning, I said, instead of writing it, how about I film you in case you need this? And it was just that week. I said, you can nod or shake your head. Okay. I almost fell over. So I shake to begin with. So all of a sudden I have So I'm like, okay. And not thinking, here your phone records date and time. pardon me, and I'm filming the clock, to make sure I had the record. So your brain plays tricks. And 20 minutes later, I had the full medical directive. I asked it in yes or no fashion. So that was that.
So wait, let me stop you there. Medical directive is living will, like pull the plug if I'm on a machine.
Correct. But there would be more discussion going in. But this is simply in an emergency. It gives the ER an understanding that don't plug you in or plug you in, but there will be a discussion.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, they do what they're trained. They will get you and do all they can. And that might not be what you want.
Right. So, it may not be what you want. That's the key.
So we went to visit with a partner. And when we got there, I drove because he was just that weak. And we got there and I looked over and he had died. He died.
Oh my God. Wait a minute. He was still in the car?
Yeah, we didn't make it out. He was.
Oh my God, Mary Jane.
I thought he was sleeping, which he needed. And I looked over and I thought, and I wasn't upset. It was a weird calm came over me. And there was a car next to me and he looked, he said, I'll call 911. I'm like, okay, I don't know who the man was, but he did this. And again, your brain is like it's frozen and people do things around you and we'll meet you at the hospital. The EMT said to me, I said, okay, they don't confirm or deny anything. They simply put a person in the ambulance, close the doors, and they're off. They're basically a taxi and they get all their orders by phone from doctors in ER. So an hour later, half hour later, people are arriving, relatives I've called, my son was next to me. And a doctor came out and said, do you have his papers? Now that would be the medical directive. I didn't have one. I said, no, but I have my phone. And I did this morning. There is no way on God's good earth that I thought at 10:30 that morning I would have to provide this to a doctor in an ER 4 hours later. That was just amazing. And he looked at me. He could see his patient in 4 hours earlier and saw what bad health, how much disrepair he was in. And halfway through, he said, I have my marching orders. And he did want to borrow my phone, I'm sure, to bring it up to the powers that be to make sure it was acceptable. But that changed everything right there. He was allowed to be brought up to the palliative care area and die of natural causes. So that was huge. Had that not occurred, bring in the machines. And
so he died in the car and they revived him?
They were able to get a pulse. He was never conscious.
Oh my gosh. So so they got a pulse. He was still alive. They had to figure out what to do with him. And if you didn't have those papers, he would be locked up onto a machine.
That's right.
And oh my God, who knows how long he would have been on that machine.
Well, that's it. But the other thing as well is I was, quote, only his wife. You had 3 adult sons who would have had to be consulted. They were all estranged. Nobody gave a flying fig. But it could have been I don't know that. I suspect that. But I didn't have to go through that because I had this video.
Mary Jane, so at that point, and I know the next 2 years, because we've talked about this before and you've been on the show before, the next 2 years you spent with probate lawyers, getting everything figured out. That how long it was?
It was 18 months.
18 months.
For a small estate. That is equal to the fact that the attorneys didn't want to waste time on something that's not going to make them a lot of money. Right. I went through three attorneys, 2 of whom were women, very well educated, great schools. They couldn't get the deal done. I'm originally from New York. I got New Yorkie. Let's put it that
New Yorkie.
I did. I've been well-mannered. I was in a sphere that I'd not been in before. I needed them, number one, at the gate to file a document with the probate court of Washington appointing me as the personal representative. There was no will, so there was no executor.
Oh.
You cannot touch anything without a personal representative document unless you are a co-signer on an account, and we were not. So if there's two tips right out the gate here. Number one, get your state's medical directive. Every member of the family over 18 needs to have his or her own. Number two, it's not intended to be a secret. Keep it available. You never know when you're going to slip on a banana peel, a leaf fall in the shower. The list is long. These things not only cover after you're gone, but in case you cannot speak for yourself. And we hear of car accidents and the weather and who knows what else. But everyone over 18 should have one. Put one in your glove compartment, your freezer bag on the refrigerator so you can grab it. That's the first thing the EMTs will ask for. And then they go from that, and they get on the phone to the hospital. So the hospital knows ahead of time what they need and what they don't need. So
Right.
It's no small thing, and it's free. It's online. Secondly, go meet an attorney. Look at a will as an investment. It's not an expense. And make certain you name somebody, an executor or an executrix for women. What that does is it precludes that whole fairly obnoxious go find an attorney so I can keep the lights on conversation.
Yeah.
Out the gate, you skip two traumas. You have somebody to go to, you have a name of a lawyer, and you have a medical form. So you will skip the first 3 days of trying to figure that out while you're mourning somebody. And be ready, because there's very little preparation in life for this. I happen to have been a realtor, so I knew to sign and date, initial and date, any conversation you have with anybody. And it preempted, this was long enough ago that we didn't keep notes on our phone. So I went to the dollar store and got 24 yellow pads, and I filled all of them over time. But the book came out of the frustration of all of us. And I kept notes as I did, and I had piles on my desk. And I sat back after having a good old cry and a good old fit. And my father had been a probate attorney, and I was like, Daddy, I need you now. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at my desk, my dining room table. It was my war room. And I said, these are my chapters. I looked at medical, financial, real estate, business. So that put the bug in my ear for the book. And it preserved my sanity, because each day to each week, I could just go bleh. And I mean, it was all for me. I wasn't thinking down the lane.
Right.
I couldn't think. And if I could, I don't know how much time we have. I invented a position, and it's called your first lieutenant. It is not the person with your will. That's a legal term, executor. My son was 28, so he was of age. He was personable and smart, and a license, a driver's license. He knew all the players, but he was just a step removed. I could give him a list of errands every single day, and he did carry them out. And the name came from the fact that one morning he got up and he looks at me and he salutes. And I knew he was being funny. And I just thought, there he is, my first lieutenant. And it worked. I don't care what you do for a living, how much money you have, you cannot do this by yourself. You need helpers. And the helpers arrive. Neighbors, one lady, I don't know what she does today, but she was cooking up a storm. And she took care, she's very concerned about my cat. How's your cat? I'm like, my cat's fine. But comedy, keep comedy in it because you need relief, whether you belly laugh. That is hugely emotional at the wrong time. But don't worry, people aren't going to remember it. Usually you burst out laughing around people you don't know anyway. Or tears. That's how I met a neighbor down the block. Whoa!
Yep, tears and laughter. That's it. And that's what you go through when you lose someone. And then there you are having to deal with all of this for 18 months. And then when you wrote the book, how did it turn into a business?
I wrote the book. So I waited until the estate was closed, the estate taxes were paid, and I went to the courthouse and I changed my name back to my own. And I remember that moment. I was back in my own skin.
Yeah.
And it's really surreal, but it was beautiful. I'd done it once before already. I did it in my 20s for other reasons. But so I had my book, my manuscript. Amazon at the time had a program called Create Space, and I had a good friend who was teaching us how to do this. So I sent it off, and it is surreal to receive your first draft, as it will look like. And I published it under M.J. Charles. And then my friend said, "Good book, Mary Jane. I still don't know what to do."
Right.
So I created the workbook. And that's the little book that could. It has saved people. Our good friend, Kathy Wehage, her husband had a stroke the end of January. And she has her own bailiwick on a daily basis to deal with. In any case, the EMTs came and neighbors arrived and he's in the hospital. She's like, "What am I doing? What am I doing?" She remembered Mary Jane's book. And her two older sons came and they're like, "What are we doing? What are we doing?" She said, "There's a book in the kitchen. It's big, it's yellow." And that's all she could remember. And she and her husband had sat down only 3 weeks prior. And she made them sit down and we have to finish this book. And all the banking information was right there.
Perfect.
They knew which branch to go to, with whom to speak,
Perfect.
what to look for.
Perfect. And let me mention that this is not just for your spouse. When my mom died, same thing, Mary Jane. What you teach is what I took her through. Not only that, I got on the bank accounts. I got on the investments so that I didn't have to do anything except, hey, this is Patricia Carr. I'm on the investments. So it was so much easier because I planned in advance. Now, I planned this when my mom was 65. She was retiring and she was moving. So I did it all at the same time. We wrote down everything. The other thing that I did, just as an aside, was I went through every single picture she had and I wrote on the back who it was, because these were like black and white pictures from the 1910s, you know? So I did all that, but she wasn't dying. This is my point. She was not dying. She was thriving and alive, but 65.
Yes.
I'm like, when am I going to get a chance to do this again? I was helping her move. We sat down and we did everything together. And oh my gosh, when she passed, also a small estate, but I didn't have to do anything with her.
That's it. You want a smooth path. And in my book, the shorter book, I say on like page 84, 3/4 of what you just read, you can skip if you take the book and fill it out. You won't have
Exactly.
You don't have to explain. It's in your hand. This is what she wrote, and everything is dated. If you change your mind, we're all entitled to change our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. You can change it anytime.
Single line through, date and initial, because your family is like most of the world. Who crossed that out? Who whited that out?
Right, exactly.
You could put a stamp on the floor and there's going to be an argument over it.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Just single cross out with your initials and your date. They can't challenge it. It's first prime evidence is what that is.
And for some of us are single people with not a lot of family. So one of my dearest, oldest friends since college, I am his executor. because he's single and his parents are gone. He's got no brothers and sisters. So literally, I have a booklet that has everything I need all filled out. And even when he updates something, he'll send it to me. So it's so important. And Mary Jane, the fact that you had to go through this and go on, I know you had your son, but you did this on your own.
I did.
And now look at you making a difference for so many other people. So tell everybody about what you have coming up with your podcast. You also do training classes because we can talk about this all day long, but unless we carve out the time, it's not going to happen. So Mary Jane carves out the time. So tell everybody how you carve out time to get this done.
I will. Just one caveat. You finished saying you can put somebody on your accounts as a co-signer. They don't need to know. This is an in case. So definitely you're checking and anything that you transfer back and forth, but make that accessible. So through all this, so I turned into a quasi-legal paralegal person, got that done. And in retrospect, I have done lots of things in life. And so I took all those skills between running of corporate events and being a realtor and whatever, working in a bank. All those skills allowed me to gain my footing and work through this. My classes are, don't be afraid of it. Writing they're not really last wishes, it's last instructions. Leave detailed instructions. If anyone's ever purchased something from IKEA, you're ready to give it back because you can't put it back together. You're missing, you got 6 of one, it goes on. Keep it simple. And the whole thing, the book is easy to use. I have classes monthly. It's as an overview, or we have a Get Her Done quarterly where we march in and 90 minutes later, you have a finished book. And it's really fun to look at occasionally, and you catch mistakes. Oh, what did I think of that? And you can change it. So that's the book. Right now, I've had enough time to look back on everything. And having been a hands-on caregiver twice in life, 3 times, pardon me, I realized how much time I spent alone worrying about people, not going for a haircut, skipping my daily walk, whatever it might be. So I am now about to launching the Caregiving for Caregivers podcast series. I've had 2 so far. There are 4 speakers, and each, though they're under an umbrella of a given topic of the day, each has her own specialty. And it's always on the last Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And the publicity will begin shortly. But it's about an hour long, and it's conversation, and you are able to submit your own questions for whatever topic you wish that pertains to the overall presentation.
Yeah, it's really, you said it fleetingly, but when you are giving care to someone else, even if they're not living in your house, they're living somewhere else, when you are the caregiver for someone, we tend to put them first and ourselves last. And isn't that the biggest mistake of all?
It really is, yeah. Because you'll be crying in a car somewhere and not know why. You'll be exhausted and you can't maintain a conversation. You'll hear it, but nothing goes in. Your brain is full. It is just full, and you do need a break, and it's not selfish. It is a matter of self-preservation. And for those who are like, well, it's my son or it's my husband or whoever it is, the best rule, the holy rule of thumb is love those like you love yourself. Caveat, right. You got to love yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Love yourself as you care for others. I'm tangled, but you get the point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can't not take care of yourself.
So the best place to get information on upcoming overviews and get her done. For me, get her done. If you can schedule yourself to get it done, oh my gosh, off your plate, no more concerns. Just go to lastwishesnsupport.com and you can be in touch with Mary Jane. You can see the upcoming schedule and you'll also be able to hear about the podcast. Podcast is so great. We just plug in on our phones and we could still be doing other things. So it's not like you have to sit down and watch it. Just plug it in. You can still be working in the kitchen or vacuuming or whatever you're doing, taking care of your kids or your loved one or whoever. So Mary Jane, thank you. I really appreciate you. And the fact that you've been through all of this and come out standing on the other side with a commitment to support other people so they never have to go through what you went through. Bravo, sister.
Thank you.
Really, thank you so much for all that you do. And thanks for being my guest here today.
Yes, it was fun as always.
Always. Be sure to go to lastwishesandsupport.com and be in touch with Mary Jane. And of course, we're here every week at Women's Prosperity Network with another episode of Be Real, Get Real. And again, it's about the people behind the business. So become a member for free at womensprosperityNetwork.com. Get your membership going. Be a part of this amazing community of women who are on purpose to make a difference. Mary Jane Charles, thank you so much for being here with us and for all that you do.
I appreciate your invitation, and it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, me too. I had a great time. I hope to see all of you again next week at another episode of Be Real, Get Real. Until then, have a fantastic day and a wonderful week.